The Locked On Network revealed their list of the top 100 players in the NBA. Where does Bam Adebayo rank among the top players in the league? Has Tyler Herro done enough to climb up the rankings? We break down the numbers and what we got wrong on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is closer than you think, and right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. Download the FanDuel app now to get started. I'm Wes Goldberg, host of Real Jam Radio and Locked On NBA Daily, here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. And David, this weekend, perfect example of how the way I'm a Dolphins fan is very different in the way that I treat the Miami Heat. I don't know if you caught my tweet that was embarrassing, but I tweeted right before the Dolphins kicked off at 1 p.m. Hey, I'm buying in on the Dolphins. I'm in, despite all the training camp storylines, everything. I actually think this team is going to chase for a wild card potentially this year. And then they go out and get embarrassed by the Colts 33-8 or whatever the final score was. So, I'm forever the optimist with the Dolphins for some reason, which I know is a very common thing about Dolphins fans. But with the Heat, and we've talked about this before, I'm a little bit more of a, I don't know if pessimistic is the right word, maybe realistic. I don't know where I fall on that, but I definitely don't have like this blind sense of optimism with the Heat the way that I do with the Dolphins. And I don't know what happened in my childhood to make me the way that I am.
I think it's just the nature of the fact that they don't win much. They haven't achieved much playoff success. And so there's nowhere to go but up when you're feeling so low for the past 30 seasons. I think that's basically what it boils down to is you keep hoping, you know what, this year might be the year where they turn things around and they go, you know what, we're not quite ready for that success just yet. Give us a few more years and maybe we'll get it right. So I'm sorry that your daughter wasn't able to keep up the undefeated streak there.
We had a good run there.
They're not going 17-0.
The Marlins have lost a bunch. Like they're losing to the Nationals now, and I'm just like, all right. The beginner's luck faded real quick, but that's how I know she's actually my daughter. The mush is strong. The mush is strong with her. So that's what it is. That said, I'm still such a sicko. I'm like, it's just 0-1. Who not going to play that bad every game, right? Like you can't.
16-1 is still in reach, No,
it's not over. All right, really excited for today's episode. We are putting a pause in our 25 of 25 series to reveal the Locked On Podcast Network top 100 player list. We're going to release the full list as a network at 1 p.m. Eastern today. So we're not going to jump into some of the big reveals just yet. We'll save that for later in the week. On today's episode, though, we are going to talk about where Heat players rank among the league's top 100 players and ask if we as a network got it right. We have the list that we submitted as a show to compare it against, where we higher or lower on some of these Heat players. But let's just jump right in and start with Bam Adebayo, who is ranked 31st overall by the network, David. Notably, 2 spots behind Jimmy Butler at 29. And I thought another notable one spot ahead of Domantas Sabonis. And Heat fans and Kings fans are well aware of that ongoing debate, Bam versus Sabonis. I think it's a no-brainer. I love Sabonis. I have no problem with Sabonis. I still think it's a no-brainer that Bam is the better player. He does it on both sides. And you could build any kind of team around Bam, whereas Sabonis, it's a little bit trickier to build a team around him, as the Sacramento Kings are finding out in real time, and as the Pacers had already learned and why they traded him in the first place. That said, this is not a debate about Bam versus Sabonis. It's more about where he ranks overall. 31, too high or too low in your estimation, David?
Far too low. I think it kind of speaks to last season and how even as media members that cover the league and watch as much basketball as all of us do, I think you just have to really look at what Bam's season was last year and the kind of stink that that permeated as a result among the perception from fans and media members, and that he struggled so much at the beginning of the year. The team was not particularly good. And although he wound up flipping the switch later on, I think that's still just a matter of, well, he wasn't very good, and maybe he's in a decline. Maybe he was never good to begin with. And look, some of our own fans kind of dismiss Bam's impact. And something that you and I have talked about a lot, with Bam, it's not just watching what he does on those biggest stages, which he's typically flourished in, but it's also watching him on a game-to-game basis and making sure that you see that impact on both sides, because there's so much that he does to alter the course of the game. Maybe not as much offensively, but certainly defensively, he does so much and is such an impactful player in that, when you think of it in that context, that you have to see almost every game to go, he's one of the best, if not the best defender in the NBA, because he's just so impactful that way. And I don't think everybody kind of has that same idea when it comes to Bam. There's a certain quota he has to reach in terms of points per game, rebounds per game. And when he falls short of that, then it's kind of like, well, is he really all that productive? It's like, no, maybe not production, but that's not the only way in which you measure a player, at least not from my perspective. I think there's more to it than that. And you see all the kinds of plays that Bam negates just by virtue of him being the incredible defender that he is.
What is it? What's the saying? Happiness is expectations minus reality, or something like that.
Sure.
And I feel like that's the case with Bam as much as any other player in the league at this point, because you look at who's ranked in front of him. Chet Holmgren, one spot in front. I love Chet, dude. I have nothing bad to say about Chet, but ranking him ranking him above Bam is absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And Chet Holmgren will probably end up being better than Bam at some point. I don't think that point, maybe, yeah, right. I don't think that point is now. Nobody doubts his potential and his ability. Like, what he can do offensively is far beyond what Bam is capable of doing, right? With the 3-point shot and some of the stuff that Chet can, fine. Chet defensively is awesome. He also can't play center for long stretches. And that's why the Thunder went out and got Isaiah Hartenstein. He averaged 11 points per game last year for the Thunder. He's at best a third option offensively for that team. And at worst, he's not your primary rim protector. That's Hartenstein.
Right.
And with the amount of perimeter defenders that team has in waves, his job defensively is just easier than Bam's. There's no question to me who the better defender is right now, and it's Bam Adebayo. He is the perennial Defensive Player of the Year candidate. But it goes to show you what expectations versus reality really is. And you hit it, David. The expectations for Bam are so high. They're so high that we almost dock him for it, even though the reality of it is he is still, in my estimation, one of the best 25 players in the NBA. Regardless of what you think he should be, what he actually is, I had him ranked 23 on my list. Is that right? Yes, I had him 23rd. I had him above Chet. I had him above Jimmy. I had him above Jaren Jackson Jr., which I'm happy to debate it with Memphis fans. I'm happy to debate it. Bam doesn't foul out every other night. Okay? Bam rebounds. Jaren Jackson Jr. doesn't do those things. So, but that to me is where Bam should be. Although 31, I'm not outraged that he's there either. I think that people just expect too much of a guy who still, no matter what you think about what he should be, he's a perennial Defensive Player of the Year guy, averaging 19 or 20 points per game. And that is I don't know that there's 30 players better than Bam.
No. It's just 31 is fine. It's fine. But it's also a little lower than it should be. And I think that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about him being a top 10 player, obviously, or even a top 15 player. But when you start to get to the 20 to 25 range, I think that's more suitable to where he belongs in terms of, again, the overall impact. And it's just, I think those other players like Chet, could he be, if he didn't have Jalen Williams, J-Dub on that roster, if he didn't have the MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, what kind of player would Chet Holmgren be, and how impactful would his overall game be viewed? And I don't think it would nearly fit as well. It would not be perceived as highly as Bam Adebayo. Similar to Jaren Jackson Jr. He's not a central piece. Like, he's a good player to have on your roster, and he helps out a lot. Again, I like Jaren. I like his overall game. But I just think that for a guy like Bam, you've asked him to do a lot for this team, and he's probably never been suited for that role and might never, ever be suited for that role. But in the things that you ask him to do, he excels, and he's better almost than any other player in the league in that regard. And I just think when you look at it from that perspective, again, then you go, you know what? He's played his role perfectly. You don't want him to be a number one option offensively. Is he a good complementary scorer? Yes, he can.
Mm-hmm.
He is. And defensively, we watch these games. We watch all these players so regularly, and just everything that he does to change the course of a game, to make things difficult for opposing scorers, can't be dismissed as easily as it is. And so,
and the leadership stuff. And I know that some people roll their eyes at that stuff. That stuff matters. Okay. That stuff really matters, especially when you kind of take a glance at the top 10, when you're really starting to split hairs.
Yeah.
Those intangibles become a lot more tangible. And I think that should be the case even in the 20s and 30s, right? Like that leadership stuff, the way that his teammates rally around Bam, I think that stuff really matters.
There's a reason he was the captain over Jimmy Butler, even though Jimmy was more productive.
Yes, that's right. That's right. All right, so we'll put a pause in the Bam Adebayo conversation. Again, when we reveal the top 100 in its full capacity here, I'm sure there'll be plenty of more debates that we can open up. Pascal Siakam versus Bam Adebayo. That's a little interesting. We're going to move on to Miami's next player, though. Heat fans are used to complaining about their guys being disrespected, but did the network show a little too much respect to Tyler Herro? We'll talk about it next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season's here. Well, maybe not from our Miami fans, but FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Because right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You'll love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, whether it's player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. Well, again, maybe not for fans. You don't really... At least you did it on Sunday. And make your favorite fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little bit more energy to your Sunday. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Rounding out the top 50 in the Locked On Podcast Network top 100 player list is Tyler Herro. Tyler Herro right there at 50. He's in the same sort of tier when you kind of break these out into groups of 10. He's in that same tier as LaMelo Ball, Julius Randle, Zion Williamson. He's ahead of guys like Damian Lillard. He's ahead of Lauri Markkanen on this list. David, are you surprised, frankly, by the respect the network has given to Tyler Herro? Because I don't know, this is the first time we've done a top 100 as a network. I promise you, had we done this in the last couple of years, there is no way Tyler Herro is cracking the top 50. I was a little surprised. I had him at 45 on my list. So I'm not saying that he's to answer the question that I thought that I teased it. Are we giving him too much respect? Absolutely not. I had him at 45. The network overall had him at 50. That said, I am still surprised that the network views him as highly as they do.
Yes and no. Like I just, again, this is a player now that maybe you could use the opposite argument for. Like his production is there. You see that from him. He was one of the top 25 players in the league last year. He's an all-star. Like that counts for something, and he's continued to improve. I just think the rest of the league, in terms of the media members that we work alongside in the network, I don't think they like Tyler very much. I just don't think he's. I think he's viewed in somewhat of a negative light. I'm not sure exactly why. I was doing a preview of the Miami Heat upcoming season with Locked On Raptors host Sean Woodley, and although it has yet to air, I will allow this much. He just doesn't like Tyler. I think that's just how some people feel. It's like he's got a punchable face, or you're just not very.
Is that what he said?
Fan of, yeah, I believe he did. And,
but he's got. But wait, I'm sorry. How does he feel about Grady Dick?
Oh, we didn't mention him, so he didn't come up in terms of that. But look, he's also
that
not a fan of Davion Mitchell.
That's my immediate follow up.
That's the counter.
Do you just dislike? Yeah. Do you just dislike white basketball players? Like which is totally a fair thing,
No, I'm sure he would say that Grady is probably like an up and coming star, or he's got so much potential and things of that sort. I just think that Tyler, like ever since the Snarl really put him on the map as far as general NBA fandom is concerned, I think a lot of people just might not really appreciate what Tyler's done, and I don't know why.
I'm just very surprised in Sean as a Canadian that he could be that aggressive. I just didn't see that coming.
Well, he doesn't like Davion Mitchell either. Like he really doesn't.
Really?
It's not to say that it's not to say that he doesn't want him to excel, but he's not a fan of Norm Powell. At least as a basketball player, he likes Norm personally.
He doesn't like any of the former Raptors. Norm Powell won a championship.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, he seems to think everything's going to work out in Miami's favor just because of Eric Spoelstra. He has, again, counter to a lot of Heat fans that we hear, such high respect for Eric Spoelstra that he believes Miami will be a lot better.
Most
than a
Heat
lot of
fans respect Spo. It's a very vocal minority that
minority.
doesn't know what they're
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah.
That's fair. But either way, it's interesting when you get these kind of outsider perspectives. Like, we cover the team, we talk to the players, we see what the interaction is like, we see them on a night-to-night basis. But when you see the outsider's perspective a little bit more, perhaps a little surprised that they do recognize Tyler's production and that they rank him as a top 50 player. But I also, like a player in particular, Darius Garland, that we mentioned before in comparison to Bam. Like, what about his game is so much better than Tyler's that he would be ranked so substantially higher than Tyler Herro? Is it just because he's part of a winning team? I don't know. It's just, where do you separate the criteria? And it makes it very, very difficult. Like, this whole process was a very difficult one to rank these top 100 players. Right. But I think Tyler is a very productive player. I think he's continued to get better. I think even Heat fans kind of dismissed his overall impact because maybe he hasn't stepped up in those big moments, especially not in a playoff setting. But he's had a number of issues in regard to why he hasn't been able to flourish through the playoffs. I don't know if the expectation is that he's just going to be a 50-point per game scorer when the lights are shining brightest. I think that's really outsized expectations that should be tempered.
50 points per game?
Well, you know what I mean? Like, in terms of like playoffs.
I would say. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, wanting to have these big monster games,
No, of course.
Like,
and there's been injuries and stuff like that for sure, and been thrust into some tough situations the last couple of years that were directly related to Jimmy Butler not being there. So those are things. And some
could you have ranked Tyler higher? Could you have?
I had him at 45.
Like, you had him for 45. I know. Could you have ranked him higher, like you personally?
Oh, I had him. I had him at 45 behind. I don't think so. I had him behind legit two-way wings with size stuff that, like, Tyler Herro's just never going to get to that, right? There's a limitation to what he can do athletically. So I had him 2 spots behind Franz Wagner, 3 spots behind OG Anunoby. Probably a little low on Wagner. I had him Alperen Şengün I had at 38. I had Tyler Herro at 45. You know what I mean? Like, these are just guys with size that can just do things that Tyler Herro's never going to be able to do. So I think that's about as far. It's in terms of like the Darius Garland part of it. Like, in the rankings, you can see there's like clusters of guards, and Herro is in a cluster with like Amen Thompson, if we consider him a guard. He also plays power forward with Houston, so whatever he is. LaMelo Ball, Desmond Bane. That's Tyler's cluster. So like LaMelo, Desmond Bane, Damian Lillard, a few spots behind him at this point, coming off the injury and things like that, which is a concern that we took into account in the voting part of this. And then you look at a guy like Garland, he's in a cluster with Trae Young and Ja Morant. And I think what differentiates guys like Garland and Trae Young is the passing. Like, they are both next level passers. Trae Young is one of the best passers in the league. And Darius Garland is certainly a very advanced passer, way ahead of Tyler Herro as a passer. And then Ja Morant, it's just the crazy athleticism and stuff. I was a little bit lower on Morant because I still believe in the availability part of this, but I still had him above Tyler Herro. I don't think you can vote.
That's fair.
And then with Tyler Herro, LaMelo Ball, Desmond Bane, you can argue that those guys are a little bit more one-dimensional in terms of shooters, scorers. That's really it. What do they do? What's that B skill that they do at a super high level? And none of them have that B skill, where those other guys kind of have that.
What would Tyler need to do in order to continue climbing up the rankings? Like, right now, you would say the strength of his game is probably scoring, but I think the book is still out on whether or not he could be a solid playmaker, facilitator, and I think that certainly needs to be a step that he has to continue developing. Aside from that, is it just purely on the defense that's going to hold him back? He's never going to be a great defender. You've made that point several times.
Simplify it. I don't care about the defense. I don't care necessarily about the passing. I think he's good enough as a passer right now, knowing that he's not going to be your number one option. He can't. Like, the Heat know that, right? Like, nobody's fooled about this. Right now, he might be the number one option, but he can't be if they're going to do the things that they want to do and get back to competing for a championship. So that is what it is. At least in terms of a playmaker, I should point that he's not going to be your number one option in terms of setting up the offense. I should be very specific about that. Just be Devin Booker. Can he be Devin Booker? Can he just be a 26 to 27 point per game scorer as opposed to a 23 to 24 point per game scorer? That's the difference. That's how you climb into the top 25, top 20 mix. If he's just one of the best pure scorers in the league, and you could figure out a way to build around him with a natural playmaker point. Devin Booker's best seasons came next to Chris Paul, right? That's what you need. And that's what I would be telling Tyler Herro. How can we put him in a position to just be one of the best scorers in the league and not worry about all this other stuff that he's not actually very good at?
Have I missed anything? Because I feel like we haven't seen a lot from Tyler this offseason. And look, he could just be traveling. He's a family man, obviously.
Oh, I
Maybe
love
he's
it.
just been a little quiet now. But is it possible he's in the quote unquote lab and just putting in the work so that he could
Mm-hmm.
continue building off that? Because I feel like that chip on his shoulder, a chip that almost every NBA player has because they need it to fuel them. I think it's still pretty substantial. I think he hears the whispers about, oh, was he really a deserving all-star? Like even after getting that kind of an honor, there were many people questioning his
Yeah,
budget.
like
And I wonder if he's using that as the motivation necessary.
I love it. I hadn't thought about it, but like last summer we were getting the 4 a.m. workout videos and things like that, and that was all cool. I'm here for all the content, to be clear.
Sure.
But I do like the idea of like, okay, is it gonna just be another summer of you dribbling and shooting against cones, or are we gonna work on some of these other things? Does it all have to be made for YouTube, or are we just gonna be and maybe it is a little bit of a back to basics sort of thing for Tyler Herro, right? Maybe it's totally possible. A lot more to carve into on the Tyler Herro front, but we're gonna move on. One other Heat player cracked the top 100. We'll tell you who it is after this. So we will be covering the top 100 in even more detail as the week goes on. We'll also be resuming our 25 of 25 series. Got a ton of stuff going on in Heat World, David. I mean, just a lot to talk about here. But we have one other Heat player that cracked the top 100, and that was Norm Powell, and he comes in at number 60. I had him ranked at 65. So right there. Like honestly, going through this stuff, David, like doing it, if you want to be like, hey, he should be six, I'm not going to argue with you that he should be 5 spots higher when you kind of get into this 60s to 100 zone. Like to me, it's just a matter of taste. I'm building in a little bit of a letdown from Norm Powell based on the fact that last year was a career year. So I
Yeah.
I actually was trying to be as sober as possible when I was ranking him. But, you know, the network, to me, the network agrees 60, 65. That's the same thing when you get to this point. So were you surprised? And were you surprised to see Norm Powell at 60? And moreover, were you surprised to see that the Heat have 3 players in the top 60?
No, I'm not. I thought maybe it would be Powell or maybe Wiggins
Mm.
might still garner some kind of respect. But I think it was also a difficult year for him because Golden State,
I'm sorry, let's put a pin in the Wiggins conversation because I want to hit that next.
as far as Powell and where he ranks, if you had him at 65, and I'm sure other people did have him around that same level, that must mean that there were some people who probably had him closer to 50 something. And
Mm.
again, that just kind of shows where he's viewed as far as the score that he was. A lot of people thought he should have been an all-star in the Western Conference. I mean, that's in the West last year, and that he was an all-star snub. Is he significantly better, or how is he viewed like in comparison to Tyler Herro, that he would be just 10 spots behind him? Because I think Tyler, like he's still a younger player. Like Tyler at 25, I think is a better player with more potential, however limited that
Mhm.
might be, than Norm Powell at 32, like already deep into his NBA career. We're not going to see substantial growth. As you just said, that was his career year, the very best that we've ever seen Norm Powell play. And it happened to be in a system where James Harden was setting things up, where you had Zubac having this incredible season, where you still had Kawhi Leonard on occasion, and he was not the focal point of defenses. I think Tyler was best, like he was playing alongside Jimmy Butler, but he carried that team last year, and we saw defenses have to find a way to limit what Tyler could do, and he still wound up being as productive as Norm Powell last year. So it's just an interesting spot there. I think there's more respect for Powell because he was doing it for a very good Clippers team last season, as opposed to what Tyler was doing for a pretty mediocre Heat team.
Mhm.
But I think that they're pretty similar players there. I don't know that Powell is so much worse than Herro. I don't know that Tyler's so much better than Norm.
Mm.
And I think that should have been reflected in the ranking. So 60 sounds about right, but I would have probably been happy with him being maybe even ranked a little bit higher. Again, some of these players seem to have like this narrative about them, or this idea, perception of what kind of impact they have. And I think it's inflated as such. I think you mentioned Chet Holmgren, and he's a perfect example. It's like, oh, you're playing for Oklahoma City, you're going to get a lot more attention as a
Right.
result. And not to knock Holmgren, because I mean, you have to kind of be fair in how you nitpick each person's repertoire or game or anything like that. But I just don't see him being that kind of major impactful player. I don't know if Norm is necessarily that kind of player either, but 60 feels a little bit low for me. I
You're
would
pretty
kind of
high
thought a
on
little bit higher.
Powell. I think maybe where I hesitate to rank him a whole lot higher is, can I see that version of Powell again? Can I see it for, because Herro, there's a clear, he is building. Like, you're building on the skill set. He's building.
Yes.
With Powell, it was like that guy just shot out of his mind last year. And part of me wonders a little bit of, if the shooting numbers come down a bit, is the
Can he still
rest of his
impact?
game going to come down with it?
Yeah,
Where Herro, you just see the skill development year over year. And Powell at
that's
32
fair.
years old, I just don't know. So, and I would be happy. I
Sure.
don't even think I'd be right or wrong here. Obviously I'd be very happy if Powell just built on last year and said, okay, I had the opportunity last year. Now I can run with it. Because you could also argue for Powell, he never really had that opportunity in years past, right? Paul George leaves, Powell eats, right? Like, that's a direct thing that happened there.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. I also think that Powell actually got a little bit of a benefit of the doubt here, because he was a little bit of a hipster pick last season. Where it's like, who's actually the best player on the Clippers? Who's actually the all-star on the Clippers? It's Powell. And I was like, let's hold it up here. Like, Harden is still the guy setting up everything for everybody, and Ivica Zubac is having one of the best centers, or one of the best seasons in the league among centers.
Right.
I had him as a top 5 center last year. So, but Powell was awesome, and he was super important to a team that really needed his scoring. So, if he can recreate that in Miami this season, he could definitely climb. Absolutely.
I just tend to think that Spo is going to be able to find a way to get him going, and almost feature him to a certain degree.
We could see a little
And
bit of a
build
different
on.
version of Powell, right? A little bit more on the ball, perhaps.
Yeah. I think players don't typically continue developing at 32. So I just don't. But he's also, to your point, not really had that opportunity, and I
Yeah.
feel like Spo is going to try to make sure, because you know what, they missed out on their. They did get him at somewhat of a quote unquote bargain, but now that you've got him on your team, I think you can lean into that acquisition to make sure that he plays the best game possible. And I think it's also important to also keep in mind he's on a contract here. Like, contract seasons in the NBA are significant factors, and we might see him continue to be as productive.
Yep.
Hopefully not to the point where he hijacks the offense, although that typically doesn't happen in Miami.
Last thing here, and we are starting to run out of time, so this might be another topic for another day, but Andrew Wiggins did not crack the top 100. I think he was snubbed. I think Wiggins is so forgettable. And
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to be mean, but he is a forgettable type of player. Maybe the most forgettable number 1 pick of all time. Right? He leaves for an entire season, and I know that there's personal reasons. I'm not trying to make light of that. But he literally just left the league for an entire year, and it was like not a story outside of Golden State.
Right.
He's just he's been a throw-in in a couple of different trades now. But this is a guy who was an all-star 3 years ago. He was an all-star in the Western Conference 3 years ago. He averaged last season, playing for 2 different teams, 18 points, 4.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists per game, solid defense. He's better on the ball offensively, like better with the ball in his hands, than a lot of the guys that ranked ahead of him in our final Locked On Top 100 list. Like, we, not to give it away, we got Toumani Camara, who I like a lot, ranked 100. Toumani Camara, as good of a defensive player, he's awesome defensively. As good as he is, he's better than Andrew Wiggins. I don't know about that. Wiggins, again, outside of some of this weird thing, he's been pretty durable throughout his career. He had the one injury late in the season last year for Miami. So, but Heat fans, like, look at his games played over the course of this guy is durable. I think he was snubbed. I had him ranked 85 on my list that we turned in.
Yeah.
Him not making the top 100 to me, that's a snub. And I don't even know that anybody did it disrespectfully. I literally think a lot of hosts on the network forgot about Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. He really is not just a disappointment, but he's just a perfect symbolic representation of, oh, he's still there or he's still around and kind of thing. Like he's never been a number one option, and that was the expectation of him, being drafted as high as he was, and he's just good enough. And I refresh my memory, the All-Star campaign, did that come after the Warriors championship?
It was the same year.
It was the same year. So that's kind of speaks to how productive he was. Because in that championship series, I mean, everybody kind of forgets this. He was Golden State's second best player, was he not?
Yep.
Like he was really, really
Guarded
good.
Luka.
Yeah.
I'm not Luka. Sorry,
phenomenal.
guarded Tatum. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So he's not that far removed from where he was. It just last season was pretty difficult, and I think he just wasn't able to respond to the same way. I can say he's not a number one player and should not be viewed in that light without kind of dismissing his overall impact, because the defense is still there. And maybe I have to think back to when he was first acquired, and maybe we were a little unfair in our expectation that he would flourish here in Miami, but he still put up pretty decent numbers. He did not step up in moments where Heat fans needed to see him be much more productive, and I think that kind of soured them on him. At the same time, I think when you look at the top 100 players in the league, he should definitely be there. Like he's definitely a top 100 player in the league.
Yeah, like I said, we're not sitting here being like Andrew Wiggins, top 20, top 30, top 50 guy.
Right.
I had him at 85. Okay, I had him barely making the cut, but he is one of the best 100 players. The guy, whatever
90s.
you say, he doesn't do what he does. He doesn't have these huge scoring games typically associated with the number one option, right? We go back to expectations with guys, right? What we talk about with Bam and Tyler. He still is averaging every single year of his career basically 18 points per game. The guy is he has a bottom of the ledger production that you can just count on in a weird way. Like you can't count on him to be a number one option, but you can count on him to do something every single night. And he does. He does something. And that's, people will see when this top 100 list comes out, you'll be like, wow, that guy, I don't know that he's better than Andrew Wiggins. So, all right.
I'm looking at a list right here. There's a few names in that 89 to 100 range that are like, are you serious?
I think this deserves a deeper dive. We got a ton to chew into with this top 100 list. The Locked On NBA Top 100 is here, voted on by the NBA host of the Locked On Podcast Network. Our top 100 was formed by experts who cover these teams and players every day. Find the full list on Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll have more coverage throughout the week, like we said, including a look at the highest rated player the Heat could target in a trade, which current Heat players have a chance to move up or down with a great season or a bad season. We'll get more into this Wiggins stuff, but that's it for now. Let us know what you think about where we are judging Miami's top guys in the top 100. Did we get it right? Did we get it wrong? Do you think Bam or Tyler or any of these guys should be higher, lower, whatever? But for now, that'll do it for us today. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day.